I'm Chris Cuomo. Look, the idea that everybody is using these protests to serve their own agendas, it's true, and I know it resonates with you, and it bothers you, and it should, because here's why. This isn't just another situation that we can use as a political football. Now, that's what's being done. It's being done in the media, it's being done everywhere, but it's a huge mistake, and I can prove it. We are missing the big threat that these protests represent. And we're missing it because we are addicted to division. Everybody's got to say it here all the time about how it works for them. All these competing agendas are clouding a reality I want to show to you, okay? And you can see it. Now, the existential fears for Jewish people have been brought home to America. I hate saying it. It embarrasses me. But it is true. But here's the good news. There is a significant disconnect between what we're seeing on these campuses and what is felt by this country, okay? 80% of the country does not support any kind of bolstering of Hamas. Now, I got to tell you, 80% is too low a number for me. This is a terror group. This is like after 9/11 saying who's in favor of the Taliban. I get some people hate their own country, but this is kind of disgusting. But it also shows you something, that there's an erosion because there's a corrosion, okay? This situation that we're dealing with is not as simple as saying, you see what happens with woke? You see DEI? You see university liberalism? Or these other boogeymen that the right wants to use as a proxy for focusing on our common concerns in this country and dealing with the big ticket issues. That's politics. That's our poison party politics. And those are all real issues, and they have their place, but it's way down the list compared to what I see in this. A way bigger threat, okay? And I get, okay, and I have to keep layering the explanation because I know so many are in party think, well, wait a minute, this is why the left, this is why the right. I get it. I get how you've been conditioned, okay? But I'm going to pull you out of it. The parties only care about one thing, and it's not you. Okay, it's advantage over the other and the collection and retention of power. We have bigger concerns than their fortunes. We, America, the nation, bigger than their game. There is a hidden hand involved in what we're seeing spreading across campuses and spreading across this country. And I don't believe it's going to end when classes do. Okay? Now, again, many, certainly most, of the protests are legit. They're concerned kids wanting to see the suffering in Gaza stop. There is a right to having those feelings and voicing them, and I get why they think it is right. But not all their arguments are their own. Their intentions are. I believe that. But there is so much shaping going on. Yes, on campus a little bit, but much more so online. Now we look at the protests a different way. And we keep hearing reports that a lot of the protesters are not from the campus. They are not students at the schools. They are outside who have come in as groups. Hold that. Okay? Why? Then you start looking about the tents, the signs, the equipment, the messaging. There is a familiar coordination that I have seen before. And it is proof of something that has been done to us with stunning effectiveness. You want to talk about what is beating us, okay? It's not the kids on the campuses. It's the motivations that are being put in their mind. I've been following this for a while. The financing for terror. Terror is cheap, but they're pigs like everybody else who gets into the money game, so they like to find it. And they found new ways. In the year before October 7th, okay, Hamas got a ton of funding, nearly 100 million cryptocurrency. Why? Very little regulation, very hard to track. One currency they used was Tether, and it was sent through, hold there, it was sent through companies that don't say, hi, we're terror funders. Okay, they're conduits. Some know where the money is going, some don't. But Tether gave us a window into it. Why? It had Wall Street appeal. So big shots started to invest. Big shots were watched more closely. Big shots like Howard Lutnick. Now, that name may be familiar to you if you remember the 9/11 days. His firm was decimated by 9/11. Think about it. Now, the guy whose firm was decimated by 9/11 is taking a big stake and bragging about the stake in a cryptocurrency that's funding the exact kind of group that destroyed his own firm and killed all those people and decimated those families. Now, I have no reason to blame Lutnick for trying to fund terror, but it shows you how insidious it is, how under our nose it is. Now, money is much easier to track than information, especially online, right? Now you connect the dot to seeing the social media platform people fumbling, bumbling, and stumbling in front of Congress. We don't know what to do. We don't know that there's too many messages. There's too much information. They know how to take advantage of SEO. They know how to put ads next to the most provocative stuff, but they're overwhelmed with messaging. Next piece. Russia, China, the information that we were given by the intelligence organizations and apparatus about their meddling in the elections was true. It wasn't part of a hoax. Now, attacking Trump as an agent for Russia, that was naked political opportunism. The impeachments, that was just dirty politics. But not the reality that our enemies are using troll farms and messaging and propaganda online to interfere in the election. And we're seeing it here now, ramped up by Iran, the head of the snake, who is not getting enough attention. So now we look. Is there direct evidence that terror organizations are controlling these protests? No. But the groups that are helping to fund them, who have very benign names, do have a common pool of second-level pockets that are coming into them. Left-wing billion-dollar charities. A new report finds that the leaders of those charities have gotten in serious trouble for funding someone else. Hamas, American Muslims for Palestine, grants of $2,000 to pro-Palestinian student groups. A national board member for the group was a fundraiser for the Holy Land Foundation that was designated a terror organization for giving $12 million to Hamas. The founder of the main group instigating these protests, Students for Justice in Palestine, is Dr. Bazian, B-A-Z-I-N. Now, this guy works at an American university. He fundraised for another nonprofit called Kind Hearts. Sounds benign enough, right? Had its assets frozen by the Treasury Department in 2006 for giving money to who? Hamas. So, now you go to the next piece. Right on your screen now. Social media, specifically TikTok. The other night I had Scott Galloway on, mentor, big brother, genius, okay? And he says, man, when you look on TikTok, do you think it's a coincidence that videos showing the cruelty, real and imagined, fabricated by the Israeli attacks, and showing the glory of Hamas are 7-to-1, the ratio, over showing anything bad about Hamas? You think that's a coincidence? You think that's the reality? Some kids might, especially if they think TikTok is their only source for information, especially if they're getting messages rain down on them. You've seen your kids. I've seen mine, right? They get into that crouch stance where they're like this and they can't hear you anymore. This is a different vibe. They are highly susceptible. The way our parents used to worry about television was nothing compared to how just completely laser focused they are. And these messages are labored, and these bad guys know it. A recent Rutgers study found 30 minutes a day on TikTok increases someone's chances of holding anti-Semitic or anti-Israeli views by 17%, compared with 6 for Instagram, 2 for Twitter. Why is there such a preponderance on social media? Because they're telling us the truth. No. That is not why, although it is an argument, and I hope our friends out there who are on the Israeli side of the ball, as well as our friends on the, I don't know, they're not my friends, but the people who are on the Islamist side of the ball, anybody who's involved in this conflict, you should let Legit media, get on the ground. And it is Israel that's keeping us out. And I understand you think you're doing it for our safety. I think you're doing it as much for the integrity of your own operations. You should let media get on the ground because you are losing the information war to propaganda. And that's why I think they should let us go. And I would go tomorrow. Now, if social media is going to win the day and videos that we can't vet, you took a look on TikTok, you find videos, millions of views, explicitly pro-Hamas, explicitly anti-Semitic, including one of a Hamas terrorist raising money on the app. Take a look.
We're going to dive into history. The Western media still running with this Hamas storyline. Hamas, Hamas, Hamas. Do you know who created Hamas? Do you know who funded Hamas? Israel. Ask Israel. Ask your besties over there.
While one side is a fully functioning military system, the other side is a group of Palestinian men who got tired of the occupiers stealing their land and killing their people and decided to fight back.
Allahu Akbar wal izzatu lillah. Allahu Akbar wal izzatu lillah.
I commend Hamas for fighting against their own annihilation, as is afforded their human right all armed resistance groups facing an illegal, tyrannical, psychopathic, and brutal occupying regime.
You think that poor man's Galifianakis is just coming up with this organically? I'm telling you, this is the reason to pay attention what's happening on these campuses. They are proof of a hidden hand that is the new weapon for our enemies. Terrorists that absolutely hate what America represents. And they have found our weakness. They will never beat us on the ground. Never. They will never beat us in the water. They will never beat us in the sky. But they can beat us on the internet. And we're seeing it more and more. They are tearing us apart. And they are getting some of the most educated people in our society to believe some of the most ignorant things. Now, remember what I'm telling you. I'm not saying it's wrong to complain that there's so many people dying, I argue to you, needlessly in Gaza. That's true. It has to stop. The problem is how. You got to condemn Hamas. You got to get their boot off the neck of the people who want to be free there. They are subjugating them. They are terrorists. They are extreme Islamists. And it has to begin with giving back the hostages so there is leverage to tell Israel that now it must make unilateral moves. Without that, there will be nothing, and no other legitimate state would do it any sooner. In fact, few would conduct themselves the way Israel has now. Certainly we didn't after 9/11. And let me tell you, if we had protests on campus of people saying, I'm pro-Taliban after 9/11, you think you saw counter-terrorism in UCLA? You would have had a bunch of first responders whooping asses like it was 1950s and it was time to discipline the kids. Thank God that's not what's going on. Thank God it didn't happen then either. This is the threat to see, and it's going to get worse. Now, one of the people who has been warning me about this for years did the job of keeping us safe at the highest levels. Former deputy director at the CIA's Counter-terrorism Center, Phil Mudd. And what Phil always says is, let me get the guy's devices. Let me get the guy's devices. In the beginning, I'd be like, what do you need his devices for? Can't we just figure out if he did this? You got to know who he's talking to. You got to know what this is a part of. And now here we are, Phil. And when you look at these, what is your analysis of how real this new front is, which is them using the internet to change minds in America?
Two words, numbers and breadth. If you look at the challenge that I've faced at the CIA and the FBI in 2001 and beyond, you're looking at fairly limited numbers. That is, Al-Qaeda potential members or sympathizers of the United States, or ISIS members, sympathizers. You're talking about a limited number of investigations. And you're talking about typically urban areas that are not across America. We had a lot of investigations, but you're not going to Nebraska. Contrast that to today. If you look at the dozens of universities, these are 18, 19, 20-year-old kids across America in college campuses from Fordham to the West Coast. If you look at the numbers of kids involved in the breadth geographically across the United States, and you think that a counterterrorism guy like I was years ago, Chris, can keep their hands on this, You cannot do this. So in contrast, if you think this is similar to what we might have faced 15 years ago, in contrast to that, this is a bunch of American kids across America on American campuses saying, we sympathize with extremists overseas. We didn't face that. I would not want to be there today, Chris.
How do you combat their ability to use social media to shape messaging?
Boy, let me give you a simple answer. Solve the problem by talking to Benjamin Netanyahu. This is where the Secretary of State comes in, who's tied to this, so that you can get a hostage deal and shut this down. If you let this go on for weeks or months, the chance that you can contain tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of youth across America who maybe see TikTok, something on YouTube, and who might be radicalized by that, you cannot control that. And let me be more specific. You can't investigate that. You cannot follow what tens of thousands of kids are doing on TikTok or watching on TikTok and determining what they're talking about that night and whether they want to go attack a police officer. That's what Americans expect, and I'm telling you, that will not happen.
See, that's my concern, is it's not the kids per se. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I have a soft spot because, our kids are going to college now, and I think I know these kids. Maybe I'm wrong. But my concern is that once the bad guys have figured out that there are a lot of people looking to be outraged in America and looking to fight with one another, and they can feed the people who are already down the road of deep state, who are already down the road of Big Brother, who are already down the road of America is corrupt, and they start doing this, and I believe it starts to look like Iran in the 60s and 70s, when fundamentalism took root, and everybody said, that'll always be a minority, that'll never be anything. Now look what happened. An entire culture was consumed by fanaticism that started with problems about the conducting of state affairs. Am I overthinking it? Phil?
We lost the link.
You still there, or did I lose you? Why am I surprised? Now look, that's my question, okay? We'll leave it there. Look, I do what I can, all right? What I control, I can. Everything else, I can. It's just like these campuses. Except, unlike the campuses, the problems that happen on my show I never see coming. They knew this was happening. They have professors on their staffs that say it's okay to see just a one-sided thing, and that debate is somehow dangerous. And it's more important to just fill your heads with what you see on TikTok than what you can get from learned people through debate right in front of your face. And I'm telling you, the kids are not your enemy, all right? It's what's influencing them. And it's not going to end with them. That's why the Proud Boys mattered so much on January 6th. You got groups like them all over the country who are desperate to be angry. They don't give a damn if they're affiliating with terrorists. They don't care. It's all about attacking the state. And that's why we got to get a handle on this. That's what matters. It's not vote for us because the other side is this. Forget the parties. They'll never get us through this. It's got to be me and you. It's got to be a collective concern that our government starts going after what matters to us, not just to their ability to stay in office. 4 minutes, 5 seconds. Coming up, former Facebook COO Sheryl Sandberg, is here to tell us about what she has invested of time and effort to produce a documentary about the reality of October 7th. Because there's all this propaganda, all this, it never happened. Sandberg has a powerful piece on the female victims, telling their own stories, so you can judge what started where we are today. Sandberg, next. You have to counter what people say about things with what you can show them about things. And that's why I really wanted Sheryl Sandberg to come on. She's got a new documentary, Screams Before Silence, You know her as the former Facebook COO, right? She's a filmmaker. She wanted to capture the mass sexual violence against women perpetrated by Hamas on October 7th. What am I talking about? Rapes, sexual assault, battery, in the extreme. Sandberg captures firsthand accounts from those few survivors, also freed hostages and responders, of what they witnessed and experienced, the reality of that day. Here is a clip of a must-watch documentary.
There were 10 men around me. And my instinct was just to fight, to do what I can. I wanted to show them that I'm strong and that I'm not going to go away that easily, that they're not going to take me so easily. I'm going to fight them. I didn't mind getting killed. I think maybe I preferred that in those moments. I was scared. I was really scared that they're going to rape me there and that they're going to drag me through Gaza streets and parade my body around. So I feared that more than being killed.
It's very powerful, but I got to tell you, there's even more powerful material in it. Coincidentally, my wife watched the documentary. We never even discussed it and posted about it because she thought that it was so galling before I even said anything. It's very impactful. Sheryl Sandberg joins us now. Thank you very much for taking the opportunity.
Thank you, Chris, for having me and for caring about this issue. Caring about this is so important. I'm so grateful.
Well, let's talk about why the concern is a commodity. What does it mean to you that there is a significant appetite for the ability to say, nah, it didn't happen. And if it did, it wasn't what they say. And even if it wasn't what they say, Israel did a lot of it.
I find all of that really scary and really unacceptable for the following reasons. This issue is not about what's going on in Gaza. This is not about whatever you believe should happen. You can believe there should be a two-state solution, living in peace. That's what I believe. You can believe anything you want to believe. But what you can't believe is that sexual violence, which has been this well documented, didn't happen. And what you really can't believe is that rape is resistance. Rape is never resistance. And I think people are having trouble in this polarized time holding two thoughts at the same time. You can believe that what's happening in Gaza is a tragedy. I believe that very deeply. You can believe that no innocent life should be lost. I believe that very deeply. But you still have to believe that what happened on October 7th was mass, systematic, planned rape and genital mutilation of women and men that has been documented. But since people don't believe it, I went to Israel and filmed this. And this gives anyone a chance. Just watch. If you're not sure, watch with an open eye, open heart, open mind, and just listen to what these people will tell you, because this is their story.
I want to get to another clip, but I want to ask you a context question first. So the immediate thing is the yeah, but. Okay, fine. Sandberg gets it right. I believe these people in here. Okay. But what about everything that Israel was doing to them, just as bad for so many years, and that's why it happened? How do you deal with that?
There's no yeah, but of sexual violence. Think about this historically. For the most of history, we thought that when there's war, women's bodies are part of it. You conquer the village, you get the gold, you rape the women. No. 30 years ago, just 30 years ago, after Bosnia, the DRC, former Yugoslavia, people started prosecuting rape as a war crime, a crime against humanity. And every feminist group, every progressive group, and conservative group, everyone held this to be true, because we all have mothers. We all have sisters. We all have daughters. Rape is never necessary and doesn't need to be part of war. And if in this moment our polarization is so bad that we backtrack on that, that's unacceptable. And that threatens women all over the world. Chris, right now, as you and I are having this conversation, there are hostages and they are still in Gaza, and we know they're being sexually assaulted. We know that because the released hostages have told us that they have spoken to the ones who are still there and they're being sexually assaulted. One of the people who interviewed in this film told us that half of the hostages she met when she was in captivity had already been sexually assaulted, and that was months ago. We know right now, Ukraine, Sudan, Ethiopia, women are being raped as part of war. We all, no matter what else you think, we stand against this. And stand against this doesn't mean just, oh, it happened. But where's the outrage? Where are the protests? Where's the marching on this?
Especially when it was perpetrated by design by a terror organization, which we saw during 9/11 was like, the one thing that could bring all Americans together, because there was division then also. But then there was a common bad guy, somebody who did something that no one could agree with in the form of what we would then call Al-Qaeda. This time, not happening with Hamas. Nobody's protesting, screaming, bring them back, bring them back. And it is upsetting, which is, of course, the catalyst for why you wanted to give people more truth. Now, a clip that I'm very interested in, and if I don't have it, I still want you to tell me the story. One of the huge images that wound up being weaponized was there was a woman in some of the raw video that came through early on. We saw it. I think my producer Jonathan grabbed it off Telegram when we were in Israel. Was of a young woman whose pants were all bloodied.
Nama, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yes.
And, okay, they have the clip. Great. Let me just show everybody to remind. And I know this isn't easy to watch, but it happened. So you have to deal with the reality because too many people are distorting the reality. So when you actually have it, you've got to watch it. Here it is.
Correct.
She's barefoot and in her pajamas, and they're blood-stained.
And I thinking of what she experienced, until that point, and how long was she?
Maybe that's the thing with that video. That we would like to think that this couldn't be possible. That nobody would harm a young girl. But then you just see it there. They're the one who posted that video, the Hamas.
Now, that particular scene, Cheryl, I can't tell you how quickly and how often people would say, oh, no, that wasn't her blood. She was just sitting on a truck. Or she was sitting somewhere. Oh, no, she wasn't. It wasn't that she was hurt. It was something else. That's IDF propaganda, that they want you to see it that way. And I remember being startled that someone could come up with that, because my feeling was, well, how could you know that? How could anybody know that that was the explanation? What did you make of the moment and what that mother means to our understanding?
I mean, I sat there with Ayelet. That's her mother. The young woman in the video is Nama. I don't think anyone knows if that's blood or not. But she's watching her daughter get taken into captivity. I mean, can you imagine? I have daughters. I have 3 daughters in captivity still to this day. We do know what happened to a lot of people. There's another scene in the documentary where this guy, Rami, who's a hero, and I'm sure you remember he's ginormously large. He's a private citizen. The sirens go off on October 7th. He gets in his car, takes his gun, and goes to where the terrorists are. He rescued hundreds of people by himself. And I walked with him in a field of trees. This guy crying said, in this field right here, I saw women's bodies dead. Sorry, this is graphic, naked, legs spread, bloodied. They had been raped and killed, and they were tied to these trees. I closed their legs. I covered them with sheets. And he was crying because he didn't rescue them. We know exactly what happened to those women. That was blood seen by eyes. Body after body after body was coming in naked. I said to one of the first responders I was interviewing for the film, you've been processing bodies, getting them ready for burial for many years in many countries. How often are they naked? Never. They're never naked. Naked is sexual violence. He told me that there were so many people, they couldn't identify if they were women or men because their genitals were mutilated. This is mass systemic sexual violence, and the world needs to see what we're up against. Hamas aren't subtle. They don't say, oh, we're done. They say, we're coming back. We're going to do October 7th over and over again. The terrorist groups that are funding them, they don't say only death to Israel. They say that, but then they say death to America.
Yeah.
This is what we're up against. And as painful as this is to watch, people need to see it because this, and you've been so clear on this, this is a challenge to our way of life. Mm-hmm. This is a challenge to democracy. This is a challenge to equality for women anywhere in the world. And they're very clear what they're trying to do.
So, Cheryl, let me ask you a personal question. You have lived your entire life believing that if you will it, if you work for it, if you're smart enough, if you're good enough, it's going to happen. And you have killed it by every metric. And now, just like that, you're in a position where being Jewish and having Jewish children all of a sudden puts you in a palpable state of peril in the place that you thought was the safest place in the world, where the one place in the world where it doesn't matter if people have a problem with Jews is not going to touch you here. How has it shaken what you believed about everything that was absolute in your life?
I mean, thank you for the question, Chris, because it shows how deeply you understand this. If you asked me on October 6th, if we would see terrorists parachute into Israel, kill people, I want to be clear, they are holding hostages right now, and they're not just Israeli. Some of them are American. Mm-hmm. And then what we would see is not outcry and get the hostages back and bring down the terrorist group and make our borders safe and get someone on the other side of the border that can be negotiated peace for the Middle East, but rather it's Israel's fault. Or I had to tell I looked at my 18-year-old son who wears a Jewish star, and I looked at him, he was going traveling, and I said, I'm sorry, sweetie, I need you to take that star off. Tears running down my face because I'm not sure it's safe for him. That is a terrible place to be. And honestly, that's why I'm speaking out. That's why I made this film, because we cannot let this happen. We've taught everyone to believe women, believe these women, believe their bodies. This documentary is the story of women who are not here to tell their own stories, and the story of some hostages who got out and can share what's happening right now. We have to stand against hate, racism of all kinds, and that, for the first time in my life, includes anti-Semitism. I am so grateful to you, Chris, because the depth of your care and understanding of this, you are brave, and we're never going to do this alone. We're not going to do this alone as women. We need men who care about sexual assault. We're not going to do this alone as Jews. We need people of all religions to care about anti-Semitism, just like we have to care about violence everywhere, about racism and hatred everywhere.
We got problems at home, but the signature of the American experience has always been that we're in it together, right? Everybody here was running away from somewhere else. We got nowhere else to go. We have to stay together here. And now we realize that the threat is more immediate than we knew before. I think that this was a really, really ambitious thing. I don't know you, but this was not easy. Couldn't be easy for you. I've been doing this a long time, hearing those kinds of stories. And I know that's very penetrating, not just as someone who's Jewish, but as a woman and as a mom and as a human being. You took a lot on to tell this story, and I appreciate you for doing it, because if you don't believe, you need to watch. If you do believe, you need to watch, because you need to be able to tell others. Screams before silence. Sheryl Sandberg, we're a call away if we can help. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
All right. Screams Before Silence on YouTube. Sheryl Sandberg, happy to have her. 4 minutes, 30 seconds. Up next, I don't have the same take. The Britney Spears story is all over the place, okay? I don't like it. We're going to spend good time on it. There is now a feeling that Britney Spears should have not had her conservator removed. I don't buy it. I think that this is overreach of people thinking they have the right to tell you when your life offends them and you shouldn't be able to live it your way anymore. Spears was seen barefoot wrapped in a blanket after a fight with her boyfriend. So now there are new questions about whether she's mentally unfit. I got her former manager, I got a lawyer to give us the standard, and we're going to have a conversation, because I believe this is people sticking their nose where it doesn't belong. Next. You got to cover Britney. My instinct was no, I don't. I got bigger concerns. But I actually think it's worth covering, just to kind of pursue why people think that the media should have some crowdsourced consequence that Britney Spears shouldn't be able to run her own life. You remember the hashtag Free Britney thing that made us all cover this in the first place, which kind of helped motivate the legal move to get a 13-year conservatorship which is what it sounds like. Somebody appointed by the court, in this case her father, by the way, which was a very complicated situation, that basically made all the life decisions for Britney Spears, who was an adult, because she was deemed to be mentally unfit. Last night, police were called to an LA hotel because a woman matching Britney's description was seen harassing and threatening hotel employees and guests. Later, Spears and her boyfriend got into a fight, allegedly turned physical. Sources say Britney was screaming in the hallway. Guests thought that she was having a breakdown. Paramedics were called. Britney left the hotel barefoot, wrapped in a blanket. Just hours ago, she posted on Instagram that it was all fake news. We know she's had a tough time, but you know what? I never heard anybody calling for Johnny Depp to have a conservator when he was going through hotel rooms, destroying them like they were going out of style, and 100 other crazy things. But with Britney, she should have her life taken away because she shaved her head in 2007, a day after getting out of rehab. So she shouldn't be able to live her own life. Attacking paparazzo's car with an umbrella. You know who also wants to do that? Me, like 10 different times. Does that mean I don't get to live my life? They are the most annoying, vicious people in the world. If they came after you the way they came after her, I guarantee you would have swung, okay? She also temporarily lost custody of her kids after a series of public breakdowns. Now, good, that's the way the system's supposed to work. But at what point do you take it away? There's a legal standard. It hasn't been met. So why are we doing this? Let's get both perspectives, okay? A man who once lived with Britney Spears and her former manager, Sam Lutfi. Sam, thank you for joining us. I don't even have questions. I just want your take. Britney Spears, the notion is this, and you respond. This is all I need. She's a kook. You enabled it and everybody else. She needed the conservator. She needs it now. Your response?
Man, couldn't be further from the truth. I lived with her, managed her. She was seen by numerous doctors and court-appointed professionals the entire time. Never diagnosed with anything. I never saw anything. What I did see was a lot of narrative from self-described neurotypical people outside in the outerverse, and the paparazzi in the press that wanted to spin some sort of narrative, and they were successful in doing that with the assistance of her parents and other scrupulous people that had ulterior motives in her life. But I was there. I lived with her. I didn't see any of that. It didn't exist.
What's the chance that now it's different and now she can't make her own decisions anymore?
That's impossible. That's impossible. I mean, people fought for the Free Britney movement, which ultimately I started. If you go back to my Twitter, my first tweet in 2009 was Free Britney. And I've been a proponent on that for many, many years now. It's countless for shorting hours over it. Now that she's free and she has a voice, she goes on Instagram and she tells her side of the story. People decide not to believe it. It doesn't make any sense. So it's strange because they wanted someone to be free, and now we're encroaching in her private space. Mm-hmm. And it's the Chateau Marmont. I mean, who the hell knows what really went on? All I know is that the cops showed up and saw that there was nothing going on. They left. Right. And paramedics were called because somebody else wanted it, and the paramedics left. She went home. She drove home, got on Instagram, and said, screw these people. Look, if you're a fan of Britney or if you're not a fan of Britney, it doesn't matter. She's still a woman. She's entitled to her privacy. That could have been anything. We don't know what happened in there, but apparently nothing. Because the cops went home, did nothing, and the paramedics took off with nobody. She drove home. She went home and posted on Instagram and said, don't believe all the nonsense.
Sam Lutfi, I appreciate the perspective, and just to be clear, I'm not carrying water because I want an interview or something. I don't want to interview Britney Spears. Just have her live her life. I got bigger things, more important things to worry about. Agree. But I wanted a straight take. Sam Lutfi, thank you very much. Let's take a break. 3 minutes, 45 seconds. Thank you for all the messages. I have allergies. I'm okay. I appreciate it. You can go on the Substack if you want to hear about my long COVID journey, but I'm good. I'm not sick right now. We're going to look at this now from a medical standpoint and a legal standpoint. Dr. Drew is here to help us out with this, and my friend Sarah Azari. What's the law, and what does he see in terms of a medical standard? Next. So, you heard from somebody who knows Britney. Now let's look at the medical and legal issues here, okay? We have internist and leading addiction medicine specialist, Dr. Drew Pinsky, and LA criminal defense attorney and NewsNation legal analyst, Sarah Azari. It's good to have you both. Doc, I'll start with you. Where is the line?
Okay. Where's the line? Well, I'll tell you what. When she was originally diagnosed many years ago with bipolar disorder, she was put on a locked unit for 14 days, which is a status reserved for the most seriously psychiatric ill. And the people that were taking care of her did not feel, even after those 14 days, she could be safely on her own. That's why they put the conservatorship in. In California, I've never been able to get a conservatorship for that kind of thing. So she must have been very, very, very ill. Now, she did well under that conservatorship, and she wanted time off. She should have that. She should have an opportunity. Years ago when she got off conservatorship, I said, look, I can look across the street here and see people that get conservatorship way more than Britney Spears. It will not go well. There will be problems. She has an illness that is marked by episodes of decompensation, but that doesn't mean she needs a conservatorship necessarily.
Sarah, very rare, big move. You and I have both seen people at the Chateau Marmont dancing around in thongs with knives. They didn't wind up getting a conservatorship. What do you think is going on here from a legal perspective? Was it all about the dad pulling strings?
No, I think, look, Chris, I think that the concern that we have about Britney, this could be anybody at the Chateau, a drunken night at the Chateau, but the concern we have is not about now, it's about her history. And one of the concerns that I have is that the conservatorship, as difficult as it was to put it in place, as it is in California, it's that when it was terminated, there was no final mental health assessment. And that was really odd to me, that she asked the court, she said, I don't want one. The court said, okay, fine, we'll just wrap it up. And so I'm not saying she needs a conservatorship, because at this point, she didn't even get 5150. She didn't have a 72-hour hold, which is in California what we typically do when somebody's going to harm themselves. And so, it's so arduous to get a conservatorship in California. I can't say that she needs one, but I think the concern is she's had history here. There's a reason. And Drew, there's a reason a 26-year-old getting a conservatorship for 13 years, there had to have been something very serious going on. We just don't know because the records are sealed.
No doubt. Very serious.
Yeah, but it was the father.
As serious
Guys,
as
don't leave out that
be.
aspect. It was a father who was working in concert with the system who was saying that he wanted it. That's very influential, Sarah.
But Chris, the probate courts in California are courts of equity, not really courts of law. And so they look after the best interest of the conservatee. Not about the father. It's not about anyone who's coming and screaming and saying, she needs help. It's about whether she can take care of herself. And what aspects can she take care of? Maybe she can't take care of her money, but she can take care of her health. It doesn't have to be all-encompassing and oppressive, as she put it, or as hers was. But it's the tailored needs of the person.
But at what point, Doc, I hear you, Sarah. I get it. But, Doc, here's my problem with it, and please feel free to resist. To me, this is like an extension of everything else we're seeing in our society, which is where we're going to get to tell you how you live your life. We're going to get to tell you what you can say. We're going to get to tell you what's okay. And if we don't like it, we're going to put a stop to it, even if it means you don't have control over your life anymore. That's what I see this as an extension of.
I'm very sympathetic to that idea, but the fact is serious mental illness is associated with something called anosognosia, which is a biological block in insight. They don't see what's happening to them. It's distorted. It's denied. We call it denial more commonly, but it is a biological event. And so literally they can die because of these illnesses. They are fatal illnesses many times. And in California, you can't intervene to save somebody's life for a brain disorder unless they happen to have dementia. Then you're required to do it. It's the most bizarre set of laws. The worst set of laws apply to the human brain.
Look, all I'm saying is this. As you said earlier, Drew and Sarah, you deal with it all the time. There's so many people who are so much more outrageously concerning and a danger to themselves and others than this person is. But this is where we're here for, and I see it as the flip side of celebrity. But I appreciate you laying it out, and maybe I have it wrong. Sarah Azari, thank you very much. Drew Pinsky, as always, a pleasure. It's good to have you both.
Thanks, Chris.
Up next, final thought if there's time.